Leaving a sinking ship. This is for Black women in toxic jobs. Let me be clear. I am talking about your job is a sinking ship. So when I talk about leaving a sinking ship, I'm not saying leave your job tomorrow. I'm talking about planning to leave a toxic job. So we all know that right now we are in very turbulent times. We know right now that over 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs recently. So we are talking about planning. If you're in a toxic job, planning, making steps, being strategic for leaving a toxic job that is harming you. Because staying in a toxic job, even if it's an unstable job market or whatever, it is not benefiting you. So we are going to have a conversation today about when you know that job is toxic, the ship is sinking, what you can do to recognize number one, it's sinking. Number two, what you can do to start planning so you can save yourself. If you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been licensed for over 20 years. I'm also a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm also the co-founder with Marissa Price of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. The waiting list for the 2026 Job Liberation Virtual Summit is available, so that is in the description section. Also, if you want to get the replay of the 2025 Job Liberation Virtual Summit, that is also available in the description section of this video. So today we are honored to have one of the speakers of the 2025 Job Liberation Virtual Summit with us today, Catrina. So Catrina, can you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Kamani. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you and your beautiful audience. Listen, it is a beautiful, brand new and blessed Sunday, and we are going to get all the way up into this conversation, okay? I'm very much looking forward to it because it's a discussion that we have to have. But before we go there, hey there, Queen, Catrina Marie here, better known as the Boss Chick Biz Coach and your fearless legacy leader. So I am the CEO and the co-founder of Shared Visions by Catrina. That is my online coaching and consulting company, which I've operated for the last 9 years, launched it back in 2016. I am a holistic business coach, RN health and wellness educator, and a freedom strategist. And I teach high-achieving women entrepreneurs over 40, women of color, LGBTQ plus women, especially those who are leaving the corporate burnout behind, right? I teach you, or them, if you're one of them, I teach you how to build an aligned and profitable online brand and business without sacrificing your soul and sanity or compromising your health and happiness. So that's the coaching side of my business. But I also, so there's two parts to my business, right? So that's the coaching side. The consulting side really is pretty simple. I partner with corporations. I go in to transform the culture of those organizations by elevating workplace wellness, building resilient teams, empowering women leaders, helping them, with burnout recovery, because a lot of really good talent and valuable employees are leaving. And prior to doing this work, I worked in corporate America. I had a corporate career for 30 long years. Yes, girl, I said 30. Okay, you didn't hear that wrong. 30. 25 years in healthcare as a registered nurse in a variety of healthcare roles in facilities and organizations. 20 plus years in leadership, 10 plus years in coaching and consulting and professional development. So yes, I've done a lot. I've seen a lot. I'm also a transformational speaker, a best-selling author, and currently working on my second bestseller as we speak. So I have a lot of titles. I've done all the things. I've worn all the hats, and that's pretty much about me in a nutshell.
Wow, she's done a lot. And let me tell you, Catrina, at that summit, I mean, she was on fire. I mean, I was like, woo, like she came in smoking. She was on fire at the summit. So she was talking about so much at the summit. And one of the things that she talked about at the summit was the importance of us saving ourselves when we're in a toxic job and the importance of recognizing when you're on a sinking ship. But before we talk about being on a sinking ship, I want us to kind of frame the conversation a little bit, Catrina, a little bit off camera. We talked a little bit about sometimes when we talk as Black women about, save yourself from a toxic job or, sis, this job is harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some Black women have the perception that we're saying, leave that job today, or leave that job tomorrow, or like
Yeah.
leave the job immediately. And I
Mm-hmm.
have always been very clear on this channel that I've never said to a Black woman, girl, just leave that job. Everything gonna be okay. Just leave that job. I've never said
Right.
it. I have
Yeah.
always been very clear that what I'm saying on this channel is number one, you're not alone in being in a toxic job, right? The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is that it's important to plan to leave a toxic job so that you can strategically leave and replace your income and your benefits, right?
Right. Right.
Only time I say, okay, maybe think about immediately leaving a job is if you're in immediate danger, physically and or psychologically. You're about to
Right.
have a heart attack or something bad is about to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and or you're about to have a nervous breakdown, right?
Right.
But generally, I'm like, let's talk about planning, okay? Why is it that you think some Black women, when you say, let's talk about planning for leaving a toxic job, because I know a lot of fear comes up for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we even talk about, let's even talk about planning, this response is, what do you mean? You want me to leave? What?
Right.
You want me to be homeless? Like this fear response.
Oh God, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. You know, because people argue for their own demise.
Mm.
And the reality is that people know the right thing to do. They
Mhm,
know that they're educated women, right? We're talking to educated women here, high achievers,
mhm,
overachievers. And even though we are educated women,
mhm,
and even though we are articulating that message very clearly, Dr. Kamani,
mhm,
oftentimes women will just hear what they want to hear, right?
mhm,
They're not really paying attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth. Because here's the reality: when people know that, and I just mean people in general, right? Not specifically women, men, whatever, just human beings.
mhm,
When we realize that there is a problem, and we first have to admit that there's a problem,
right.
right? But we don't always want to accept that as our truth.
Mhm.
And the reason we don't want to accept the problem as our truth is because that means we then have to get in radical action and do something about it. And
Mm.
not
So you're in denial.
everybody, you know what I mean? So yes, they're in denial, right?
Right.
They're already going through the grievance process before it even happened. They're already playing out all of these scenarios and the
Mhm,
consequences of
mhm,
what if the negative, what if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if people
mhm,
think this is a joke? What are
mhm,
people going to say? You know, they're already feeling guilty that I've gone through school, I've gotten all
mhm,
the degrees, I pursued a
mhm,
higher education, I gotten all this debt, I
mhm,
neglected my own needs and my
mhm.
family's needs. I've done all of these things. I've made these sacrifices. And now you're telling me after all of that, I need to leave and walk away.
Ah,
And the reality is, yes, that is what we're saying. We're saying to plan for what inevitably may happen, especially in these current times under the current administration sitting in that White House right now. Need I
yeah,
say more? We
yeah.
are in tumultuous times, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And I think people also look at the climate that we're in right now, and they say, you know what? I am afraid to leave. And because of all the rhetoric, not only in their own minds, I call them the dialogue demons, okay? Because you've got all those negative Nancy's going on in your mind, and you're
mhm,
giving yourself excuses as to why you shouldn't plan for what
mhm,
might inevitably happen to you, because you've seen it happen to your
mhm,
friends and your colleagues, your coworkers, your family members, and people around you. And yet you refuse to move. But
mhm,
sometimes people are in shock as well. So when these things are happening, rather than getting into action, they're at a standstill, right? And so we've got to speak up louder, right? We've got to repeat the message, and we've got to articulate on a deeper level why it's so critically important to make a move now, right? And so that's my belief, that's my philosophy. I feel like, again, just going back to what I initially said, people will know the right thing to do, but if they really want what they want, they're going to find a way to stay in that predicament, right? That's true for anything, right? People know, it's kind of like if we use the analogy of you've gained some extra weight and you need to shed those pounds. You know what you got to do, right? You got to move more and consume less calories. I mean, it's simple, but it's not easy. But that's what you got to do. You got to hit the gym. You got to go for those walks. You got to drink more water. You got to eat more fruits and vegetables. You know what you have to do. You got to proportion your meals. And still, if you would, here's the thing: people associate the action they have to take with the consequences that come with that. They associate the two. So it's more painful for me to get up early mornings, for me to go to the gym, for me to work out, for me to stay up a little later and, or to take the stairs instead of the elevator, right? To eat more fruits and vegetables because I really want to eat the hamburger and the pizza and the tacos, right? So I don't want to do the work. The pain of doing the work and knowing what it is I have to actually do, it's so painful that I'd rather just stay where I am because it's more comfortable being in this familiar discomfort than it is to do the new thing that I know is going to actually get the results.
Right. So even though it's uncomfortable, it's painful, it's more comfortable in terms of this is what you're used to,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Even though you can't stand it, you're used to it, right? The other thing I wanted to kind of follow up on a few things you said, Catrina, because it was so going on. So what we're experiencing for many Black women right now, particularly because it's terrifying what we're going through right now, is that many of us are witnessing, and I would say a vicarious traumatization of seeing so many Black women being laid off from their jobs. So seeing this trauma of like, oh my God, more Black women. And I'm sure most of us know of some Black woman who's lost their job because of this situation that's going on, right? So now it brings it closer to home of, oh my God, it might be me, it might be me. So then we kind of settle in like, I need to stay put in my situation. The thing about it is when we talk about planning, again, we're not saying leave your job tomorrow. We're not saying that. We're talking about planning because the thing about it is not planning is not going to save you from not getting laid off. That is not logical. That's not logical.
Right.
The other thing is recognizing that we're in a fear response. So when we're in a fear response, now we're like in this kind of survival mode. So we don't recognize that we're in this survival mode. We're not thinking logically. We don't even recognize that. We're in this survival mode, like we're in this fight, flight, or freeze mode. And we're in this fight, flight, or freeze mode in our terms of our brain. Just briefly, just indulge me, everybody. So when we're in this fight, flight, or freeze mode, our amygdala is kind of taking over in our brain, right? When our amygdala is taking over, we can't access our prefrontal cortex. That's where we plan, we organize, and we utilize judgment, right? That's what we need to plan to get out of a toxic job, right? So that's shut down because we're terror, right? We're fearful. So the hope is that, ladies, as we think about, what's going on, we acknowledge the fear. That's the first step, right, Catrina? The first step is to acknowledge I'm scared right now. Acknowledge what's happening, but don't put your head in the sand and say, "Oh, I'm just going to stay put." And let's not talk about that. That's not helpful to us. We have to acknowledge the fear, but also let's start looking at resources that will help us so we can start planning. The other thing that I think is so important for us is that we need to think as Black women how to explore other ways to make money because, as Stephanie Perry says, these jobs ain't loyal. Stephanie Perry, these jobs ain't loyal. The other thing is that we have to think about as Black women, how do we create multiple streams of income? Because what we're seeing right now with Black women, all these layoffs, that when that one job ends and we don't have anything else, we're messed up. Okay.
That's right.
So this is a very crucial time, I think, for us as Black women to learn, okay, I'm seeing what's happening. And this is an opportunity for us to pivot. And we've always pivoted as Black women, as Black people. We've always.
Right.
So this is an opportunity for us. So Catrina, can you share with us, because during your intro, you shared with us about a wealth of experience you've had in the professional world, a wealth of experience. So can you share with us how, or maybe one or two or three, how many experiences you want to share with us about being in a sinking ship at a job? How did you know it was a sinking ship? How did you know? Let's start there. How did you know it's a sinking ship?
Okay. So I think in order to answer that question fully and transparently,
Mm-hmm.
and so that the audience, our audience, can really relate, right, and resonate with this, I think we have to first talk about what a sinking ship is. Like, why do I use that analogy, right? Let's start with
Mm-hmm.
the definition. Let's start with a description of what that looks like, what that feels like, so that you can identify, yes, I'm talking to you, can identify with what a sinking ship is, okay, as compared to a toxic job, and why I do compare the two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there are so many similarities, and that's why I kind of led with that.
Mm-hmm.
So contrary to what people might believe, what you might believe, right, a ship does not sink because it's too heavy. Okay, it does not sink because it's too heavy. There are a number of reasons why ships sink. So one is buoyancy and weight, right? Too much water gets in, the weight of the water exceeds the vessel, and that vessel gets off balance. It can't handle the weight. That's
Mm-hmm.
one. Okay. Now I want you to think about this as you're, because I'm going to compare it to toxic jobs, and I want you to really hear the similarities.
Mm-hmm.
The second reason ships sink is because there are structural failures. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The ship itself, the operating system, were poorly designed to begin with. Guess what? It was already going to fail from the beginning. You never had a fighting chance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know that when you boarded the ship, though, did you? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the human error, of course, we're humans. Humans make error.
Mm-hmm.
Mistakes are made all the time by crew members, right? Those who are in charge navigating the ship make mistakes. And then there's overloading. There's the excess cargo weight and the loading beyond, it's it being able to hold a particular capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are things we have to pay particular attention to. Now, what in the world does that have to do with toxic jobs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. Let's go back to the top, right? Dead weight, right? We talked about buoyancy and weight. Too many companies are
Mm-hmm.
top heavy with problematic employees and ineffective leaders, because just because you're in a supervisory or management role doesn't mean you have great quality leadership skills or
So true.
capabilities,
So
right?
true.
You have the title, but you don't have the background or the experience, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not a quality person. Okay,
Mm.
you yourself might be toxic. That's
Mm.
number one.
Yeah.
Two, there are systemic issues. Now, I just said the ship has structural failures. So
Mm-hmm.
does a toxic job or corporations, right? Corporate America is not designed to help women of color succeed. It is a failed system from jump. Okay.
Mm.
It is broken with no intention to fix it,
Mm.
period. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the result, by the way, of just a bunch of isolated incidents, Dr. Kamani. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
is rather inherited issues,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and a reflection of ingrained company culture, which
Mm.
equates to hostile work environments when these issues go unaddressed for a very long time. Okay. So, like I said, ships that have system failures are already doomed from the beginning, and so are these corporations. The third thing I spoke about with the ship is sinking is overload. Toxic employee overload is what we're talking about here in comparison. Employers make the wrong hiring choices all of the time.
Mm.
Okay. And then the valuable employees who come in there thinking that it's going to, the grass looks greener on the other side, until they get in there and realize, oh, this is covered in manure. Okay. And the grass is underneath is actually dying.
Mm.
Nobody's been nurturing this. It's like the dead grass, and they colored it green, right?
Mm.
But it was never really green. So
Mm-hmm.
you thought that, and you went on in there not realizing how toxic it was. Well, they make the wrong hiring decisions all the time because they just want to get warm butts in the seat. They've got to fill those positions. They don't necessarily hire the right people. And as a result, those individuals who are, great employees, who
Mm-hmm.
have, great talents, they end up leaving the corporation, the company, the employer, looking for better opportunities, right? They're seeking safer environments. They already recognize that there's a problem here. And so it becomes a revolving door because those good employees come in and out. But guess who stays? The toxic employees, the bad apples, right? The problematic children. Those companies are left with an overload of these toxic staff and burnt out leaders who don't care anymore, right? Because now they're overloaded doing their job and putting out fires all day, doing the job of their employees, writing people up, corrective actions, PIPs, and all the things, which results in a dysfunctional work environment. And that in itself is problematic. So toxic jobs drain your purpose, your peace. They rob you of your joy. Okay. They take an emotional toll on you, exposure to psychological trauma, which causes a multitude of things: anxiety, depression, PTSD, imposter syndrome, which by the way is a scam. Okay. But we'll talk about that another time.
No. We're going to go circle back to that. I'm running down. Okay.
Loss of identity, decreased self-esteem, lack of sense of purpose, internal conflict, okay, because now you have trust issues and self-worth issues. And then there's the physical toll, right? Chronic stress, burnout and disengagement, unintentional weight loss and weight gain, because we become emotional eaters when we're stressed, right? Migraine headaches that can be debilitating, shock to the nervous system, alopecia, insomnia. I can go on and on and on. It is an all-consuming experience. And even if you leave those toxic work environments, if you don't start the healing process, and that is part of the plan, by the way, if you don't make a plan and in that plan you incorporate or integrate a healing process, the trauma lingers. It comes with you and it spills over into other areas of your life. Career confidence, decision-making process. You're doubting yourself all the time. It's causing issues in your relationship, your love life, your marriage, your home life. Is wreaking havoc, right? Business burnout, just overall quality of life. And so the question then becomes, and we started this at the top of the hour by asking, why do women think we're just saying jump ship? No, the more important question is, why do women stay? Now, I just named a bunch of things that happens. It's damaging. And you still fight for your own demise. I'm going to tell you why. We stay because we're programmed. We stay because we're brainwashed. Okay. We have outdated software that needs to be uninstalled and reinstalled, and we need to reprogram our brains. Okay. We have been conditioned to confuse loyalty with love and sacrifice and survival with success. Women choose to go back to the love-hate, toxic, abusive relationship with their employers. Why? Because it's familiar territory. I'm here to tell you that some ships are not meant to be repaired, darling. They're meant to be escaped. Okay. Liberation requires a life raft. And I talked about this in the Jobs Liberation Summit. It requires a life raft. It does not require loyalty. Okay. When I personally realized that the ship was sinking, I've had a lot of toxic jobs. But when my peace was disturbed, right? When my peace started to feel like a weekend luxury that I needed to earn, as opposed to a basic right I was entitled to. You understand what I'm saying?
Wow.
My body was telling me long before my mind caught up, because I was having sleepless nights, debilitating migraine headaches, musculoskeletal issues, Sunday dread. It's so visceral, I can still feel it, even though I've been out of the workforce for a while. And that's when I personally knew that it wasn't just about the job necessarily. It was that I was having a slow leak in my spirit and I was starting to sink. No amount of money, no paycheck ever is worth drowning your purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Your body whispers what your soul already knows.
Mm.
And it whispers at first. It's like, hey, girl, we got to get up out of here. Something don't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
You choose. You look around, you say, who was that? What was that? You heard that? Did anybody else hear that? And you ignore it. The signs show up, the symptoms are there, but you ignore it. Okay, the lesson wasn't learned the first time. When the lesson's not learned, life will teach you. It will repeat itself. The next time the voice gets a little louder, this time it might nudge you. It might tap you on the shoulder like, hey, girl, did you hear me the first time? I said, we got to start making a plan. We've got to get up out of here. Something don't feel right. I feel like danger is upon us. We got to go. And you still don't listen. You still didn't learn the lesson. And so now the voice gets louder, and this time it pushes you. Girl, I said, we got to get up out of here. What part of this don't you understand? We got to get out. You saw the movie. They already stirring the teacup. Okay. You are already in the sunken place. We got to go. Okay. And when you still don't listen, life be like, psh, psh, psh. Girl, it's shaking you, it's slapping you. Get up and go. Run. We got to get up out of here. It's time to bounce. We've got to go. Let me show you the escape route. And at that point, it could be too late because you've waited and the damage is done. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So when the whisper happens, that's when it's like the peak time to start planning, right?
That's right.
But then when it's like you're ignoring, then it's more of an erosion, more harm to you. Then it becomes more of a crisis time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's critical to listen. The body's always speaking to us, right? There's a brain and body connection, but there could be a brain and body disconnection too. When your nervous system is shook, when you have a hormonal imbalance, when all of these things are going on that, you know, and you're not quite sure, like, what is happening to me? Like you can't even explain it. Right. So there is an escape plan. And that kind of gets us back to what we were talking about when we said, you don't got to jump ship now, but you got to start making the transition happen so it can be seamless, so that you can be prepared, right? What do we always say? You got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
That's right.
Okay. Here's the thing. You don't need permission to leave a sinking ship. You need to have your priorities in order. Okay. And that's where my work really begins as a holistic business coach, an RN health and wellness educator, and a freedom strategist. So I'm going to give you 5 simple tips. You can write this down or you can come back and just watch the video again, because I really want you to listen, absorb it, and process this. Okay. The first thing is, you ain't got to jump right now. We ain't telling you to jump right now. That would be insanity.
Right.
Okay. That would just be crazy talk. Like, nope, if somebody ever tells you to just jump, unless you're actually in a burning building or the ship has, like, it's going down, okay, then that might be your only choice, but it shouldn't be your first choice. It should be your last resort. The first thing is to pause, don't panic, okay? We don't need to jump yet, and we may not have to jump at all, because here's the thing, girl, if we jumped right now too soon, we don't know what's down there. There may be a lot of debris in the water that might knock us out cold and we're doomed, right? There maybe you're jumping from a height that you can't tolerate. And when you hit the bottom, when you hit that water, you may as well hit concrete, right? So you're going to be unalived on impact, You know what I'm saying? The water may be too cold and you can't tolerate it. So that could cause hypothermia unnecessarily, right? Maybe we didn't even need to jump. Sharks may be in the water waiting for a good old snack, and here you come, right? So we don't need to jump yet. We just need to pause, not panic. That's number 1. Number 2, already have a plan in place, a clarity plan and a freedom path. Okay. Here's the thing. I want you to stop waiting for the lifeboat. I want you to build your own. Why? Because in case you weren't aware, when you do go on a ship, if you've been on a cruise ship before, you may or may not know. they do not have to have enough lifeboats for every passenger on that ship. So somebody is SOL. Girl,
Wow.
you better get to building that life raft yourself. Okay. Set boundaries to protect your mental and your emotional well-being. Find a mentorship that's online and offline communities. That could be your church congregation if you're a religious person, right? That could be, just friends that are in your same circle who's doing the same things now, and definitely not your colleagues, or when I say
Yeah.
colleagues, that's co-workers in the workplace, but your colleagues
Well,
that are.
can you elaborate on that a little bit? Can you please elaborate on that a little bit? Why that's not a good idea with your colleagues?
Because they don't have your best interest at heart. The people who think that you think are your friends or people you can trust only appear that way, but they will throw you under the bus and to the wolves with no problem and sleep well at night. You need not trust your coworkers, because if jealousy is spewing, which oftentimes it is, if you are someone they envy, because admiration can turn into envy. And sometimes when that happens, they're going to do anything to protect their paycheck, even if that means putting you out on Front Street, right? So sometimes when we're doing things that they really want to do, it reminds them of all that they're not doing to make it happen. And that admiration they once had for you can then turn into jealousy, envy. And like I said, they're going to do everything to protect their job. I've had this happen to me, actually. And I won't go in too deep into that story right now, just because it's too much to tell in that story. But I'll talk about a playlist that I have that you can go look at all of my crazy corporate chronicles, with that being one of the stories. But yeah, so that's why it's really important to keep those things to yourself. Move in silence. The only time that they should know that you have plans and that you're on your way out the door is when you're on your way out the door. Okay. Set boundaries. That's a part of the boundaries. Don't get comfortable with people who's starting to question you. So what you been up to lately? Yeah, I thought I saw you on social media, girl. Looks like you're doing big things. What you been up to? Oh, nothing, girl. Not really. That's just a little something I'm doing on the side, a little hobby or whatever. I'm focused on being the best employee I can be. Like, do whatever you got to do to tell them what you need to tell them so they can get off your back and out your business. Because, honey, there are some employees who make it their business to stay all up in yours.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. Protect your mental well-being, your overall well-being. Okay. Find mentorship and communities to be a part of. And you have to also start, a part of the plan is financial planning, right? You have to. Now I know how we do, girl. We don't be wanting to look at them numbers. I know, but we got to know our survival numbers at the bare minimum. We've got to know.
Absolutely.
Okay. Step 3 would be to grab your nearby prized possessions. Okay. And I'm talking about only the bare necessities. Girl, don't be trying to grab all the things, all your handbags and all the, and I'm being funny, but no, really, you don't need to grab all the things, right? What's important are just the bare necessities. Protective gear, right? So in this case, when we're talking about toxic jobs, your best friend is going to be documentation. That should be the number one thing in your survival kit. Documentation is key. It will save your life. It will. And then I think I left off on 4. So 5 would be to just prepare to pivot out strategically, right? You need to get out as quickly as you can from those toxic environments. Why would you stay? You already see the writing on the wall. So, and then the bonus tip I want to offer you above all else really is heal first before you build. Because like I said, the trauma lingers. It will come with you. And if you don't heal first, especially whatever's at the root, the next opportunity is going to repeat itself. It's going to be just as problematic. It's going to be the same rotten pattern because you didn't clear that out. You know what I mean? So what I want to say to you, and the key takeaway to this piece as we're talking about planning, is that liberation isn't found in leaving. Okay. It is in the learning to never lose yourself again in all the chaos, confusion, and confusion. Get still, get quiet, get clear, and make a plan. Period.
Yes. And in making the plan and the healing, it's important to look at the lessons learned when you were at that toxic job. So what were the things that you missed at that toxic job that you learned about yourself and you learned about that environment so that you're less likely to go to another toxic job? But know that even if you do those things, you might end up in another toxic job, right? But that you're less likely to stay there longer, right? So these experiences can help you. But there are some things you said, Catrina, I really want to follow up on, right?
Okay.
You talked about a slow leak in my spirit. Now, I want to ask you some follow-up questions because I'm wondering, and Black women, as you're watching, you can comment on this, because what I'm wondering is, as Black women are watching this, if they're experiencing some ouchy moments, like, ouch, she's talking to me, right? She is talking to me, right? And I think those ouchy moments are like, oh my God, like you are really speaking my truth right now. And it may feel uncomfortable. And
Absolutely.
The questions I'm going to ask you, I think are helpful because I think these might be stuck moments for Black women, okay?
Sure.
So when you talk about a slow leak in my spirit, can you share why it was that you ignored the whispers and then it got louder? Like, why did you ignore those early signs that the job was toxic? Those signs, why did you ignore those?
Well, I think we tend to ignore the signs because, again, why did I specifically ignore them is because I kind of wanted my cake and eat it too. And so I've always been a parallelpreneur, right? So I've always had a very free spirit, entrepreneurial spirit. So I've always been working on my own thing for the most part, the latter part of my career. But the check was good, right?
The check
was good. The benefits were great.
Yeah.
And it was familiar territory. It was easy. I mean, easy in the sense that this is what I knew. And I also was using my employer to fund my business. They were my silent investor. So they were funding my dream. And for me, I've been a job hopper all the tenure of my career, averaging about 1 to 2 years with one employer. The longest I've ever stayed at a job was 4 years, and that was in my young 20s. Okay. I am 55 today. So, as you can imagine, 1 to 2 years over a 30-year tenure of a career, that is a lot of jobs. So I didn't necessarily stay long, right? I just went to the next job, and the next. Now, I have worked for some very well-renowned and high prestigious corporations, Fortune 500s and all the things, Fortune 500, 100 companies, but I've also worked for some very crappy jobs. I'll keep this rated PG. So I've seen a lot across, multiple roles and, all the things that I've done from bedside to the boardroom and everything else in between. But I've also seen how corporate culture, or I'll say it this way. I've seen how the culture of overwork, silence, and survival mode suffocates women, myself included. My story really is less about like one job because I've had so many, right? But it's more about the systemic system of burnout and bias. I've been in so many positions where, like I said, the paycheck looked good, but the peace was the missing part of the puzzle. And that's too high of a price for women to pay, Black women especially. My peace was more valuable than any paycheck. I've learned over the years that staying loyal to dysfunction is a slow form of a demise to my spirit and self-betrayal.
Mm.
So that's really too, and I alluded to this earlier. That's why I did, and I'm going to just plug my playlist here really quickly in case it can help someone who's watching. But I
Mhm.
have so many crazy corporate chronicles that for anyone who wants to hear about more of my journey or something that might be applicable to where you are in the journey, because I love meeting you where you are. I
Mhm.
have real stories that I share, real behind the scene insights about specific roles I've held, specific positions I've been in related to toxic jobs and prejudice at work and the mobbing approach and a hostile work environment and fighting your way out into freedom, escaping the corporate plantation, letting go of those golden handcuffs and all the things.
Mhm.
Not trusting coworkers,
Mhm.
if you're someone who likes to kind of go in the job, go into your place of work, do your job and leave, how toxic environments and the people in it hate that. So there's so many different scenarios, and it's been a part of my healing journey. So
Yeah,
it's part healing, it's part humor, but it's all truth, honey. I couldn't make up these stories if I wanted to.
I
But
know.
but it's something that I talk about, pet to threat, just all the things.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. So you talked about loyal to a fault, right? So it's a dysfunction. And it's
it
almost
is.
like, and I've talked about this too, about how toxic jobs, there's so many parallels to like an abusive relationship. Can we
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit more about, besides the golden handcuffs, why do you think for us as Black women that we are loyal to these abusive jobs? Why do you think that is? It's like these parallels with these abusive relationships. Why do you think that we say loyal? And the thing about it too, Katrina, this is the part, right? Because you talked about this
Mm-hmm.
earlier, that as
Mm-hmm.
Black women, we are brought up, particularly in our generation, Gen X, right? We
Yeah.
are raised that you get good grades, you go to college, you maybe
Mm-hmm.
get a graduate degree, and you get that good job, you say the good job, and you get that pension, all that kind of stuff, right? So we're
Yep.
told that, and so we do the things, and we kind of
Mm-hmm.
feel like, wait a minute, I did everything that I was told to do. I did all
Yeah.
those things, and I was fed a lie, right?
Yeah.
And what what's going on here? So we feel like disillusion, right?
Yep.
The other thing is we feel that, well, wait a minute. Well, maybe that must mean that I need to get another degree. Or maybe that must mean I need to get another certification because I'm supposed to play by the rules and I'm playing by the rules and it's still not working. So
Mm-hmm.
so I think part of it is recognizing that rule book that doesn't work for us anymore. It doesn't
Mm-mm.
work for us anymore. That's the first thing. The second thing is, how can we come to terms and recognize that these jobs are abusive, and Katrina, that just because that job is paying us a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the only place that can pay us money, right? Because
No, not at all.
that's the mind trip. I'll call it a
Yeah.
mind F, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it is.
right. Is that many of us think, oh my God, if I leave this job, I'm gonna end up homeless. How do we
Ugh,
go from leaving that job to getting homeless? What about planning? What about applying for other jobs? What about,
right.
right? We go from that to the worst case scenario, and we
Mm-hmm.
automatically think that that job is the only place where we can make money, and that is absolutely false. And I can
Yeah.
speak to that because that is exactly how I felt, which is so irrational. So
Yeah.
irrational. So can we speak to that? Because that is just, I think that is such a common way of thinking, particularly with Gen X. And I don't, I've
Mm-hmm.
heard some with millennials, but particularly with Gen X.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a real thing. And so you said a lot there, and I want to unpack that here. So, okay. So to start with, it's women do forget about their why these jobs hired you in the first place.
Right.
Girl, you are a whole asset. Okay. You are valuable to that company, to the department, and to the organization as a whole. That's why they hired you. So it's
True.
as if you forgot about your education and your level of expertise and your experience and all of that, right? Because women do not know how to transfer those skills into something to package themselves up as the expert in their industry, to kind of put themselves out there, and they might be afraid to. This is where women misdiagnose themselves all the time with imposter syndrome. And let me just tell you, I am so sick of that term. It is not real. And who better to tell you and diagnose you correctly than yours truly, the nurse herself? Okay, I am telling you.
And
it
a
is no such
psychologist right here
thing.
too. Yeah.
Huh?
And a psychologist right here too. Yes.
There you go. Right. Okay. You got a psychologist and a registered nurse. Like, listen, it is not real. Imposter syndrome isn't, it is. I'm going to get on my soapbox about this. I know.
You're going to get in your soapbox. I'm going to get on mine.
Yeah.
Go on.
Imposter syndrome isn't a mindset flaw. It is a societal lie we need to unlearn together. Okay. And I'm all for, Black women being resourceful and resilient, because we are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the problem, though, right? Resilience is a beautiful thing, mm-hmm. but overused resilience becomes self-neglect. Mm. We've been praised for pushing through pain, but rarely celebrated for pausing to heal. Mm. The narrative in particular actually kept me, and maybe keeping you, loyal to burnout. Mm. Okay. We have to redefine what strength looks like, mm-hmm. and what success really is for us. And does it really require us to sacrifice our souls, compromise our health and our happiness and our healing? Mm-hmm. I don't think so. Mm-hmm. It is not about enduring everything. It is about escaping what is destroying you, mm-hmm. right? We cannot keep making the mistake that enduring equals empowerment. Because even though we can endure the pain, it doesn't mean we should.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So before I left the workforce, mm-hmm. loyalty meant for me to be the first one in the office, the last one to leave, to outperform everybody, to be the first to raise my hand to volunteer, to have an impeccable track record, a great attendance record, to make sure I never had a substandard review, mm-hmm. to have all of that, right? Mm-hmm. And where did that get me? And no matter how many, I had the whole alphabet. I have 3 degrees, the whole alphabet soup of credentials behind my name. Mm-hmm. I have been fed the same brainwashing that you've been fed, the same story. Like we were puppets, right? We were just downloaded with the same message. Go to school, get a good job, right? Get a degree, get a good paying job. Climb the corporate ladder, climb as high as you can until you hit the proverbial glass ceiling. Retire well and supposedly live happily ever after, but nobody prepares you for the nightmare. They just want to keep telling you the damn fairy tale. Okay. And that's and so you become loyal and committed to things that compromise your well-being, and no more. Right? I'm no longer doing that. My well-being is first. That's what loyalty looks like for me now, is being committed to my well-being, to my calling, to my boundaries. I still show up 100%, just not at the expense of my peace or my core values, right? So we've got to stop loyal to dysfunction and start being faithful to our destiny.
Right. And what we're doing in this channel, what I'm doing too, is showing Black women there's another way, right? Showing Black women that we have options, we're able to pivot to doing other ways to make money as opposed to staying in toxic jobs. That is what we want to do on this channel, right? So let me speak a little bit about my perspective about imposter syndrome. And Alicia Renese talks a lot about this on her channel as well. That for us as Black women, for us to even be hired for these jobs, we have to be up and above everybody else to even get the dang job, okay? These other people can be mediocre at best, and they can get in these jobs, okay? We have to be up and above. So often when we come into the workplace, we know what we're coming with many times, okay? So we're coming in, we know we know it. And so people they know what we're come with. And that is why they are intimidated by us.
Mm-hmm.
So then they will say things to us like,
Yeah.
you are intimidating. Oh, no. That's because you are so deeply insecure, right?
Right.
So they will project their insecurity on us.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will try to make us feel insecure and then try to make us feel like we're imposters. They are the true imposters.
That's right.
They are the true imposters. And they try to make us feel like we're the imposters. They are the true imposters. Mm-hmm. And so I just want us as Black women, do not imposter syndrome. They are the true imposters because number one,
that's right.
They are terrified that our brilliance is going to show them up that they're the true imposters, right? Number two, they are so terrified of themselves. They're so insecure that they're doing everything to try to reminder of their own deep-seated insecurity, right? And so I'm just thinking about my dear friend Colette Elizabeth. She said, watch out for 3 things in the workplace. And if you see these 3 things from somebody, you better watch out. People who are deeply insecure, immature, insecure, and incompetent. Okay? Watch out for these people. More than likely, those are the people that you have in your toxic job. These are the people who are trying to make you feel like you suffer with imposter syndrome. Okay? So I'm going to stop there because that's my perspective.
But I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm getting what you're giving. And I'm going to piggyback off that and say that it is a scam because it's just not real. And it's still your confidence, your creativity, and your calling, okay? It's not that women lack capability, by the way. It is that we've been conditioned to doubt it. You understand what I'm saying? When we've spent years in places where we've been undervalued, your brilliance can start to feel like fraudulence, but it is not. It is just unclaimed authority. Okay. You need to, this is why my whole approach is a holistic approach now, because we need to heal, to rebuild, and to lead. But that starts by leaving these toxic work environments, period, right? Those environments that value, that don't rather value at silence our voices, that blurs our visions, right? That victimizes us on every level, to include exclusion from opportunities, right? Microaggressions, racialized criticism, right? Unequal pay, overlook for promotions, no advancement opportunities, excessive scrutiny related to performance issues, and just unrealistic expectations that are not expected of our non-melanated counterparts, right? Or even our male counterparts for that matter, right? So okay. So we said we were going to get on a soapbox.
But that got riled up. It's almost like, I kind of see it as almost like a psychotic dynamic in the workplace. It's almost as if they're trying to make us not believe a reality, right? So don't believe the reality of what you know of yourself. Believe this alternate reality that we're trying to force feed you, that you are less than, and believe this reality that we're trying to let you think that you're less than, that you're trying. It's a bunch of mess, right? So we have to be very mindful of knowing our own worth and recognizing when we're in these environments that are making us feel that we're less than. That is not the environment at all. Can we pivot, Catrina? And can you talk a little bit about, once you recognize the sinking ship, right? At these jobs, how did you pivot? How did you pivot to getting off the sinking ship? And how did you pivot to eventually just saying, I'm done with the corporate plantation? How did you do that?
That's a great question. So like I mentioned earlier, I had always been, for a good part of my career, a parallelpreneur. So somebody who had their toe in corporate America and a toe out the door and into my own business. So entrepreneurship for me, like I always had a little side business, little side gig, little side hustle, something. But I am totally unsubscribed from the hustle now, happily and wholeheartedly. But that's really where the pivot began for me. And I just got fed up with the system as a whole, the everything that corporate comes with, right? Because it is a broken system. It is so flawed.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I had to get to a place in my life. It kept being like a revolving door for me, right? Because again, familiar territory. I want to not let it go because it's helping to fund my dream business, and it was hard for me to get capital. So I had all these reasons and all of these excuses that I kept leading with that I had to keep going back in. And then I would get a job at some point, like towards the latter part of my career, and I would end up laid off, discharged, terminated, booted to the curb, put out on medical leave, and, wrongfully terminated, harassed, retaliated against, and all of these things. And so I finally was like, you know what, enough is enough. And you finally get to a point where you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was just sick of myself. So I was like, okay, it's just time to go. And I got to a crossroads, right? And this is when it really happened for me, when I made the pivot. I got to a crossroads, and that crossroads was like, okay, girl, I was on a medical leave, and God gave me an opportunity to, like, a small window of time where I could make a decision to go back into the workforce with this particular employer who was really not giving me any leeway or any, what's the word I'm looking for? They just weren't really giving me any fair options. I'll just say it that way. Mm-hmm. And I had to make a decision. Do I want to go back in? Now, mind you, I had been on medical leave for longer than we initially anticipated. Mm-hmm. And as I was preparing to go back into this position and into the workforce and do like a safe transition, they didn't want to accommodate me. They didn't want to honor basically with what my doctor was saying needed to be the accommodations. Mm-hmm. And so they gave me an ultimatum. You either come back as is full time without the accommodations, or jeopardize your job. And I was one of their best employees, never any problems, never any substandard review, anything. But I still had access to the system when I was out. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they didn't realize I knew was that they had this whole made up narrative around, putting blame on me, or they went on this witch hunt, right? And they tried to discover things about me that they just weren't not going to find. It didn't exist because I was not that type of employee. Mm-hmm. So they made up all of these lies and they put them in a pit. Now, mind you, this pit was not presented to me, and I had not been at my job. I was absent for months. So how did this pit come about? Performance improvement plan, by the way, if you don't know what that is. And I know you do, Dr. Kamani, but those of you who are watching that may not know. And I just thought to myself, it felt to me, and this is very real, it felt to me in that moment like God gave me a way out to escape from the corporate plantation, is what I really equated it to. It felt like, I've never been to prison, but if I had to, describe what prison felt like, or what, being on the corporate plantation felt like, it would be to go back into this toxic environment, especially like a slave who escaped. And then if I chose to come back, massa was going to show me a thing or two and give me 100 more lashings. It was very real for me. And I said, oh, hell no. It ain't no way I'm going back. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to find a way to save people another way, but I'm not going back because I've gotten a way out. Okay. So that was like my crossroad moments. But by then I had already built up a pretty large network of resources. I'm great at building relationships. And so I started to just tap into those relationships, get into community and congregate with those of like minds, building up my network even more, getting into masterminds, investing in coaching, using some of the money I saved to continue to fund my business and to just build and grow that way. And then I started applying for grants and using grants as a income source. And that kind of put me on the path as well. And I learned, once I left, I learned how to replace my 6-figure salary, because that's another thing. A lot of the high income earners that I work with are always afraid of leaving because they're doctors, they're nurses, they're therapists, they're lawyers, they're or maybe not educators, but maybe like, just, high achieving women who are like, girl, I can't afford to leave this job. But you actually can, because sometimes, girl, less is more. You know what I mean? That's why I said know your survival numbers, so you know what you're working with. You might realize that a lot of what you have, the luxury lifestyle you're living, those are a bunch of niceties, but they're not necessarily the necessities, right? So that's kind of where my pivoting moment started. It actually started before the year. So I was just able to, I said, well, I don't want to work for the corporations as a W-2 employee, but I can go back into these toxic environments and help to clean up these toxic organizations. So that's where the consulting side of my business comes into play. And I do secure high figure, like 5- and 6-figure contracts. And so that's been a good source of income. And then also on the other side, I work with women, again, high achieving women, ambitious women who want to leave corporate and build a business. Or maybe they left corporate already and they are building their business, but they're not making consistent, predictable income, or they don't know how to scale, or they're misaligned with their offers. They don't have the right business model. They don't have, they're not attracting the right clients or customers and that sort of thing. So I work with those women to build aligned and profitable businesses, and then teaching them how to scale. So that's just kind of how I was already building all along. So it was an easy pivot for me. And I know that's not true for everybody, but I guess that's the short version, or the abbreviated version of a long story.
Well, the good thing is that you talked about, you showed the audience about the importance of, as you have your job, your 9 to 5, the importance of like building your business simultaneously, so that as you leave your job, you're able to pivot to your own business. So I think that's a very important lesson.
Right.
So as we're working down, Catrina, can you please share about, again, I know you started off with this, but can you remind the audience about services that you offer, how you can be contacted, your YouTube channel? Just share with the audience about ways that they can contact you for services.
I have a number of ways that you can work with me. I can be contacted, probably just, you can find me anywhere on any social media platform at One Shared Vision, and that's one spelled out ONE, Shared Vision. And I would say that I spend most of my time on LinkedIn and YouTube and my community there. I am going to be launching a membership, so off of YouTube, off of the platforms, okay, because I don't believe in building my house on somebody else's land necessarily. So we don't want to make sure that we're kind of putting some things off of it. It can be very distracting because of all the noise. So you can get on my wait list for that. That's the Legacy Lounge. And I'll be sure, Dr. Kamani, I don't know that I gave you the link for that, but I'll be sure that I drop that in there for you to share. The other ways that you can work with me are, well, right now, what I'm really promoting is my Legacy Leaders Lab. And that is a 30-day premium private group intensive, like group coaching program. And I'm accepting the first founding members, 11 members to begin, into the group coaching program. Okay. It is for women who are ready to move towards their true freedom and build, an aligned and profitable business in the online space. And so if you don't know how to package yourself, your expertise up and utilize your transferable skills or monetize your God-given gifts and talents, if you don't know anything about, high ticket offers or different business models, and you're looking to make consistent, predictable income in a way that you don't feel like you have to leave one burnout to another or leave one job to another. This would be the program for you because we're focusing on the right messaging, the right business models, high ticket offers, all the things. So we're moving really from exhaustion to elevation. And so if that's what you're looking for, that would be the key program for you. And the way that you qualify for that program is to have a conversation with me on a freedom and focus clarity call. And, we'll basically, if you just need one-off support, that's a great way to get it, right? Because sometimes you don't want a deeper transformation. Right now might not be the time. So you still walk away with clarity and a personalized plan. But if you do want to go deeper, we can talk more about how you might qualify for this position. Here's what I'm doing too as a bonus. If you within the next, I would say week or two, if you go ahead and book a call with me and you do decide to join and we decide, you're a good fit, then I am incentivizing this by crediting the cost of the call towards the investment of the program. So that's a sweet deal because essentially the call ends up being free if you move forward, right? And like I said, it's a 30-day intensive, and so I think you get a lot out of that program. But it's only for a limited time. So the first 11 founding members will be the only ones to get it for the current price. And then if you are a leader in corporate and employee resource group, if you are working in the DI, doing any kind of DEI initiatives, or experiencing corporate burnout, or you feel that your organization can benefit from my services, I do have corporate wellness packages. I do speaking engagements. I facilitate workshops, and I am considered like the cleanup woman. So if you need your organization to be cleaned up with all of that toxicity that's been accumulating over the years, just give me a call and I can help with that too. Or book a discovery call with me and we can talk.
Put all of Catrina's information in the description section of my YouTube video. So I want to make sure that I read the community chat because I wasn't really reading the community chat.
Yeah.
Long. So I see a comment requesting services from me. So if you could please go to my website, and I'll put my website information in the chat. So you could send me a message through my website, and I will follow up with you. You could just go to the contact us page, and I will follow up with you. Okay, so I will just put my website information on the screen. Okay. Happy Sunday. They're saying facts if they agree with what you're saying. This happens all the time. Things appearing closer than they are. Admiration turns into jealousy. Happens all the time. When someone says they admire you, could turn without notice. That's so true. That's so true. Yes. So leaking in my spirit. Ditto. Unfortunately, the toxic work environments are abundant. I can relate. I can feel Catrina. This is my story. Loyal to dysfunction. HR background. I had no idea where to run, so I had to leave 1.5 years. HR, yeah, so terrible. Yeah. An average each time she was there 1.5 years. Gen X here. Yeah. Hey, Gen X. Degrees only gave us debt
and disappointment.
The degrees. Well, the degrees help us, right? So it helps us get to certain accomplishments and certain jobs, all that kind of stuff, right? But I think the parts are things when we got to these jobs, right? I wish somebody had told me, girl, when you get there, you're going to have people who are mad as I don't know what to see a Black woman psychologist. Like, they are not going to believe you have a PhD. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish somebody would have told me that. You know what I'm saying? But now, I mental. Wish somebody would tell me that coming up. Work is so sad. Yeah. Absolutely, Dr. Kamani. I never believed in imposter syndrome as it relates to Black women. Yeah. Love this conversation, clarification. Thank you, Cynthia, one of our channel members. Good evening, witchcraft. Yeah, this is some mind games they play on us. A whole bunch of mind games. Yes. So, ladies, I have a special surprise for you guys. This is something different that we normally don't do. So I have a surprise to share with you all today that I'm going to bring up a previous guest to share with you about our offering that we're going to be doing today. Not today. We'll have our offering coming forward for you guys. And I'm going to bring up Dr. Pamela Buchanan. Hello.
Hello.
Buchanan.
Can you hear me? How are you doing?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Surprised me. I didn't put on my headphones.
So I'm excited to share with everyone for Black women because, we focus on Black women. So we're going to be doing an I'm Not Your Superwoman holiday detox for Black women. So we talk a lot about, as Black women, that we are carrying the cape. And as Black women, we are doing everything for everybody and not enough for ourselves. And going into the holidays, this is often an issue where we are exhausted and broke down, often to the point we can't even enjoy the holidays. So Dr. Buchanan and I are collaborating on to share about the holiday detox. And while you're doing that, I'm going to have the waiting list go across the screen about the detox. Okay, and information about the detox will also be in the description section of the video as well.
All right. Thank you, Kamani. Now, I'm excited about this because it's something that I had to work on myself. Like I used to, my mother always did excellent holidays. And I love the holidays. It's supposed to be about family. It's supposed to be about connection. If you're a Christian, it's supposed to be like the birth of our Savior, not about running around, not about trying to get all the gifts, getting everything, the perfect meal, the perfect everything. What that's going to do is burn you out, make it so you miss the joy of the holidays. And like that movie, moms don't enjoy, moms give joy. I reject that. I want to enjoy too. And so this is what happened to me. About, I was already burned out because I'm an ER doctor. My knee gave out. So, just getting out of the pandemic, so to speak, it's like 2022. And I was walking through the airport on my way to an event, and my knee gave out. I had to have surgery. It was around the holidays. And so I do Christmas big, and I wasn't able to do any of it. I had to sit down because sometimes when you don't sit down, your body will just sit you down. That's what God does to you. Mm-hmm. And so, and I was like, who's going to get dinner? What's going to happen? And my daughter, who was in college, I think at that time she was 20. And she's like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I got it. We got it. You know what I learned? I learned that you don't have to be on the streets. Amazon delivered Christmas to the door. Instacart delivered the groceries. And my kids have been watching all the years. They cooked the meal. My daughter put her own spin on it. She made Cornish hens. She made my grandmother's recipe for mac and cheese. My sons made desserts. It was a good meal. And that's why I was like, that's it. Kind of like my mom. And so I learned that I don't need to do all the things. We simplify things and we have a lot more fun. We don't buy a bunch of presents. We think about experience and connection. What trip can we go on? What can we do together? Let's all go out as a family to do something. And so my kids get 3 gifts now. They get, because Jesus only got 3. And so they get a want. I give a disclaimer. It may or may not happen. We'll see. But that way, I'm not trying to buy all the things, every little thing. And we focus more on connection, family, and the meaning of the seasons versus the things. And so when I learned that, I was like, I wish I could share this with people. I want people to just be. It's the perfect time for most people, it's cold outside. Be in the house with your family and just be. Don't be in the streets fighting over the last toy. That kid probably doesn't even care. As the saying always goes, those kids usually play with the box. And so who bears the brunt of all of this? It's the women. It's the moms. and we need to do better. We need to protect ourselves. One last story that always comes to my mind. I'll never forget this this Christmas Eve. I was working in the ER. It's like, I got to get back out. I got to finish my Christmas shopping. I said, ma'am, and let me check you out, because if we don't do this and something's wrong, you'll ruin Christmas, because it'll be the Christmas that you died, and everybody's Christmas will be ruined from that point on. She was adamant. I got to get out of here. I made her stay. I convinced her. And she ended up having a pulmonary embolism.
Wow.
And if she had left, she would have surely died. But she stayed, and we were able to treat her. And she sent me a gift card and a greeting card, a few weeks later, saying thanks for saving her and talking her out of it. We're like, I got chest pain, but I'm still trying to make Christmas happen. It's bananas.
Yeah.
And so we need to break that. And that's toxic femininity. We need to break that.
Yeah. And I think, what we're going to be talking about is not only during the holidays, but it carries over like in full speed on the holidays, right? As Black women, that we're often the ones who carry the load so much, impacts us medically, right? So Dr. Buchanan is going to be talking about that in terms of medical area, and I'm going to be talking about how it impacts us psychologically. So we're going to be offering Black women tips about how to address this medically, physical health, and then how to address this in terms of psychologically as well. Okay. So again, please check it out in terms of the waiting list. The information is going across your screen. And there'll also be a description section of this video coming up. And again, I want to thank my guest, Catrina, for being my guest, talking about getting off the sinking ship. Dr. Buchanan, I don't know if you were able to hear our discussions about the sinking ship and about the imposter syndrome. Do you have any thoughts about what we talked discussions as well? Any thoughts you had about our discussion as well?
Girl, I am the queen of jumping off the sinking ship and things that do not serve me. And once you learn that you're more important than these jobs, then you will go to the places that value you, appreciate you, and places that do not cause you stress and strife. Because that's why Black women take, on average, 3 years left life expectancy than white women. Chronic stress. And so that and imposter syndrome, and we just don't think enough of ourselves. When in these corporate spaces, they lie to us and say we're not worthy, but they bank on our genius. Okay? They will take your work product. They will ask you, let me pick your brain. Let me see what you think. And you get no credit.
No pick.
I learned is billable. You're not picking a thing. You go pick some cotton, but you're not picking this brain.
Exactly.
So yeah, this
not doing
you need to protect your peace, and you need to do what serves you, because your life really does depend on it.
Yeah. And when we think about leaving a sinking ship, and we think about the holiday detox, what connections can you make with that, Dr. Buchanan? Or what thoughts do you have in terms of connections between the leaving a sinking ship and then the holiday detox in terms of I'm not your superwoman? Because I was thinking about Karen White.
White. I know. That song plays my, but you know what? The whole paradigm of the holiday season is, to me, a big metaphor of the sinking ship. We bought into that commercialization that serves capitalism. Doesn't serve us, buying a bunch of stuff we don't need, not going to use. That is just clutter. We need to be simplifying and strategizing. I heard Catrina talking about how can you leave your job to do your real dream. Well, listen, when you want to leave your job, and you need to leave your job because it's probably killing you, you got chest pain, you're like, oh, I need this money. When in actuality, you can pare down your lifestyle. simplify things. And there's so much extra that you have that you didn't even think about. I've heard many successful women talk about this, and I've done it myself because this is one of 2 days out. We need you to work more. That's what y'all need, but it's not what I need because I need to live. I need to live.
So true.
Boundaries.
A clear boundary. The average ER doctor dies at ER doctor's life expectancy 57 and I'm 50. And so you're not going to get me up in here very often. And they're like, how are you surviving all of my business? You want to know, I tell you, the majority of my income comes from speaking and consulting. Brand. Okay, it's told Dr. Brand, and that's why I still do the doctor thing. But I actually found a place that was even more chill and simple to work with. So this place is going to be like, why'd you leave us? Because I found something that served me. There's a doctor shortage. I'm in the driver's seat. I go what I want. I do what I please. And so, when you know better, you do better. But this whole paradigm of all these things we need, I was like, I don't want to go out. I don't want a new car. I don't need any more clothes. I looked at my closet. I was like 50 million pairs of the same pants, all these shoes. What can I sell? What can I pare down? And that's what I did. I was like, I don't need nothing. I told my guys, like, babe, I can't do it. I don't want nothing. I don't care if we have to sell the house. But we didn't have to sell the house. We just had to basically stop consumerism and capitalism. And that is one of the things we need to do at Christmas. And it's a form of protest too, because right now the economic prowess of the Black Americans is like, if we were a nation, we would be 10th. And I read that statistic probably a week ago. I'm like, we got a lot of money. It's the reason King died, not civil rights, but because of the money. He started to wake us up to the economics of it. And so if we were to keep it simple and really take that extra and focus on our true dreams, then we would have freedom. And then we would not have to moan and groan when they start attacking us as they are with this 300,000. If you guys can't realize that what Trump is doing is getting back of us, because 94% of us voted for Kamala. It's going to show us, but let's show him.
Point taken. So ladies, I have 2 questions in the chat that I wanted to ask you guys, and then we're going to wind down, right? So hi, I'm in pure agony from my job, but I just moved and don't want to leave yet. Any advice? It's been 15 years. So Catrina, I'll have you answer first, and I'll go to Dr. Buchanan.
I had muted myself so that Dr. Buchanan can speak. Can you ask the question again? I missed part of what you said.
She said, I'm in pure agony from my job, but I just moved and don't want to leave yet. Any advice? It's been 15 years.
Well, I always say peace is non-negotiable, right? And that's my new promotion. I mean, we treat burnout like a badge of honor. And I teach women to trade hustle for harmony. So, you've got to think about what your legacy looks like. You've got to redefine what success looks like for you. You've got to reimagine, dream bigger, want more for yourself, establish boundaries, right? And just really paint a different picture and stop telling yourself a false narrative, right? Stop buying into the brainwashing of these corporate broken systems. And so, it's critical to your overall well-being and to your success professionally and personally, your spirit. Like I said, because here's the thing, you're probably in there pouring from an empty cup as opposed to your overflow, and you're operating from a place of scarcity as opposed to your abundance, right? And abundance is for all of us. There's enough to go around for all of us. So, I think you've got to work on your mindset when you're saying, well, it's been so long and this job is killing me and I don't know what to do and I can't leave. No, you know what to do. The question you've really got to ask yourself is, why why haven't I done it? What am I really afraid of? You got to get still, get quiet, get clear. And the honest to God truth is you've got to stop giving yourself too many choices, right? We need to just make a solid decision. The decision is, this ain't working for me. This is no longer serving me. And so it's time for me to go. I need to make a plan so that I can actually get from where I'm at now to where it is I ultimately want to be. What does that look like for you? And if you don't know, then the best thing to do would be to work with somebody who does, who can help you pivot in power, who can help you reimagine again and think about what success looks like for you, and put a plan in place and devise your exit strategy. But the thing you shouldn't do is just stay, because, you know, more than likely the damage is already done from being in that toxic environment, right? And like I said earlier, we really fight and argue for our own demise. And it's just a sad place to be. But my, you know, the first advice is to get clear before you can make a change and know where it is you really want to go. You have to know where it is you are right now, right? And you have to really get in tune and in touch with your emotions. And that might require you to take a self-care sabbatical, even for a short period of time, just to clear your mind, right? Because we can't stay in the places that harm us and heal, nor can we stay in a job or a system that is broken and continues to break our spirits. So you've got to ask what's more important to you. And what's more important to me personally is my peace. And my peace is not a weekend luxury. And so staying in an environment that's toxic is not an option. And as soon as you stop convincing yourself that it's an option for you, you'll actually be able to get into action and make the right moves and make the right decision, because you know what you have to do. You just haven't done it yet.
Good point. What's that, Dr. Buchanan?
So I agree with all that. And then I wanted to add a degree of practicality, because I know that when I knew it was time for me to leave, just think about what's more toxic than being an emergency room doctor during the pandemic, asking to risk your life. And during that time, they furloughed some of us, decreased the pay of some of us, but go save the world. And, you know, as a high earner and a physician, you can't just up and leave. I got 3 kids. They're depending on me, because if it was just me, I'd be like, I don't need nothing but the clothes on my back. So strategically reverse engineer the success. So
Mhm.
dream, write out what you want. Where do I want to be? Get you a journal. I do it all the time, and visualize it. Now, take what you make, and what do you need just to basically live? You need food, water, shelter. That's it. Not get your hair done, nails did, not lashes, the basic stuff. And just live a basic and simple life. Your kids have their needs met, you have your needs met. And talk with your partner, see if he can add some support or she can add some support, and reverse engineer it. And then the mindset shift of working that job can make it a lot less toxic, because face it, we are swimming in toxicity. We're not going to get away from toxicity. America right now is toxic. America's always been toxic because we're not supposed to be here. So when you make the mindset shift that this job is my first investor in my business, this job is a blueprint because it's an actual functioning business. And I can take it as a student and learn what works, what I can use, what I can't use, what I want to take, what I don't, and start building my IP, my intellectual property from this job that I cannot stand. I remember sitting in the parking lot at my job going, I freaking hate this job, F them all. And I mean, I would be 15 minutes early and still clock in 10 minutes late. That's when you know it's time to go. And I did that quietly. I didn't want to talk. I'm writing in my journal. What you writing, Dr. Buchanan? Don't worry about it. I'm applying to TEDx's. I am trying to figure out how am I going to get out of this mess. I'm praying. faster. And that's what you do. So be practical, reverse engineer it, and take steps a little bit each day. Because what I did was I was full time, then I went part time, and then I went PRN, and then I went to whenever I feel like it for my brand.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and just to speak to that really quickly, and I'll make it really quick. I just wanted to say that reminds me something else I did when you asked the question of me earlier, how I made the pivot to bridge jobs and portfolio positions, right? Consulting gigs, do some speaking, do some coaching on the side, right? Start building up your network of resources. Get a remote part-time position, or like Dr. Buchanan said, and this is what I did as well when I was in that space, is I did transition from full-time to part-time, right? And you can do some PRN or per diem work. So, there's all of those things as well that can help you with that transition. And that's another piece of practicality.
I love that feedback, but from both of you. So something else I wanted to share or talk about or share with this listener who asked that question is you have to know your numbers. You have to know, Dr. Buchanan talked about this, Catrina talked about this. You have to know your numbers. You have to cut your expenses. So as a resource, I do have the Financial Masterclass replay, which is in the description section of this video. And then Dr. Roche and I are going to have another Financial Masterclass coming up in January. So those are resources for you. There's resources available for you. The next thing is action. You need to take action, okay? So ladies, this is the next question. If there's a Black woman watching right now and she can relate to anything that was discussed today, she feels like she's in a sinking ship, but she's saying to herself, oh my God, over 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs recently. And I just feel like I need to just stay put. I got to stay put because this job market is so unstable. What words of wisdom can you offer to her as we're winding down?
I would say the opposite, because of the instability makes me feel like I need to build my own thing even more. And we worry about them kicking us out of their spaces. Remember, just a generation or two ago, we weren't allowed in their spaces. And some would say to some degree, we were thriving. It prompted us to build things like Black Wall Street. And so, you might have to practically stay in the job for whatever reason, but hone your own genius. Look at what's needed in the market and what lights you up and where they intersect. And think about what's possible. What can you create? What six-figure side hustle can you create while you are using this as your original investor?
Catrina, thoughts?
Sometimes we just don't have the clarity as to what we really should do first. And I think that's what holds us back, holds us hostage, right? The first step is always clarity. And as a nurse, we're trained to assess first. So I would say start by assessing. Assess what's draining you, assess what's driving you, right? Do what you truly desire to do. There are so many ways to make money, and all the ways work if you're willing to work them. I have multiple income streams. If you don't know where to start, my philosophy is go with the lowest hanging fruit. Start with where you are, work with what you have, and do what you know, right? Sure. Create a freedom plan, an escape route somehow. And that does start with something I just mentioned shortly ago. You can do bridge jobs. Those are just temporary to kind of like close the gap from, to help you cross the bridge over to, to seamlessly make the transition, so to speak, right? But also portfolio positions is another way. But just start creating a plan that works for you, because it looks different for everybody, right? It's not a cookie cutter approach. What worked for you may not have worked for me or Dr. Kamani or Dr. Buchanan. Like, you've just got to do what works best for you.
Right.
And so, you don't have to jump blindly. You can build your bridge with intention, and then it could be a seamless transition. But it starts with clarity and assessing where you are now to know where it is where you ultimately want to be. And then, like Dr. Buchanan said, kind of reverse engineer like how you're going to get there, right? If you are a six-figure earner, like all of us here are or were, then you might say, okay, do I really need this much to live, right? And I know we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive. We don't want to go from that luxury lifestyle to just barely surviving. But what are the basic necessities that you need? And then a little extra where you don't have to feel like you're depriving yourself at the same time, right? Because that could be hard too. But that's where I would start.
Good points. And I see she actually responded. Thank you. So many great points. I'm trying to stand in my word. I make under 70K and I work with high level executives who always pick my brain, and I wear several hats. I feel like a literal dog. I would take action. Thank you, ladies. You're welcome. You're welcome. And then one last question came in, actually. There was a question about holiday detox. So I think she's confused about the wording. So Dr. Buchanan, can you elaborate a little bit about holiday detox? I think she's a little confused about that.
Well, we're detoxing from the overwhelm and the overwork and the notion that we need to be superhuman at this time, because it's truly what moms traditionally do. The standing in the long lines of fighting with people for this last gift, all the things that are not important about the holidays. We need to relearn and reimagine detox off of that capitalistic aspect of the holidays and go back to the true meaning. If you're Christian like I am, is the birth of Christ. And then it's getting together with family, love, joy, peace, goodwill towards men, not all the things. So we've gotten out of that habit of buying so many things and focusing on experience. So that's the detox.
So for
No overwhelm.
Black women in general, right? So if you have children or not, but just the role that we often play as Black women, how we're overworked and we're often doing everything for everybody, and just really learning how to set boundaries and really taking off our cape, not only during the holidays, but going forward. So this is just jump starting it during the holidays. Okay, so that's what was called the holiday detox. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my guests, Catrina and Dr. Buchanan. Thank you so much for being here today. Please check out resources offered by Catrina and Dr. Buchanan. Also, as I said before, information about the holiday detox will be in the description section of this video. Catrina's resources will also be in the description section of this video. If you haven't already liked this video, give it a thumbs up, please do so. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already done so, turn the notification bell so you know when I go live or when I upload another video. And please share this video with at least 2 other Black women, okay? So I will see you all later. Catrina, Dr. Buchanan, if you guys can close, stay on. Okay, I'll see you all later. Take care. Bye-bye.